Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm here with my October wrap-up. I'm going to be going over my top reads plus my stats if you're even interested. But I do that every month, so I am a little late getting this up again, so I do apologize. But let's go ahead and go over my October wrap-up. Okay guys, so with my October wrap up, I am going to be going over my stats, and then I'm also going to be going over my top 5 reads. I'm kind of changing it up this month because I had such a fantastic reading month. I had so many 5 stars that, and I had 2 6 stars. So I'm going to go over my 2 6 stars, but I'm also going to go over my top 5 as my top 5 stars because I just had so many and I still wanted to bring up a top 5 of like the 5-star ones too. So sorry, I'm kind of switching it up, but I just had so many good books that it was really hard to narrow this down. If you're new to my channel or you haven't ever seen this before, I do a monthly wrap up. I don't go into all the books that I read. I started doing weekly wrap ups this year. So if you are interested, I review every book that I read, and those are on my weekly wrap-up, so you can definitely check out. I have a whole playlist. But in this, I'm just going to go over my tops. I might bring up my biggest disappointments this month. I might bring those up at the end, but I'm mostly here to gush about the books, not be negative. So let's quickly go into my stats. So I read 32 books in October, and that was 11,645 pages. It was not as much as I was expecting. I really set myself up with a huge TBR, and I didn't get to half of it. Honestly, I had so many arcs and ALCs, and I couldn't even really even mood read. So it was very frustrating. I think I kind of got into a little bit of a reading slump after the romance readathon, where I think I read 40 books. And I was just having a tough time. Honestly, 32 books is still fantastic. So, but I was wanting to do more, if that makes sense. I had 2 6 stars. And like I said, I had so many 5 stars. I had 18 5-star books, which is insane. And then I had 5 4 stars and then 7 3.5 stars. So some of the different formats, I had 18 arcs, and that includes the ALCs, 13 ebooks, 18 audiobooks, and 1 paperback. The types that I read was 7 contemporary, 4 small town, 1 paranormal, 2 Why Choose, 2 alien, 1 historical romance, 3 sports romance, 3 post-apocalyptic, 4 dark romance, and then I had 1 mafia, which is crazy. I only read 1 mafia, and 3 romantic suspense. So this month was a little bit less than I usually do with my mafia and dark romance. So, and I read more post-apocalyptic than I usually do, which was fantastic. So definitely a great month. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my 6-star reads, and the first 6-star that I had was Shattered Dreams, and this is by Natasha, Madison. I have never read this author before, and I don't know where I've been. I've never read her, but I freaking loved this book so much. It is so fucking angsty. It was emotional. I cried a couple of times. I was it was spicy and but it was beautiful and romantic, and it just had everything. It had me hooked. I read it so fast. I loved this. This is actually the first book in the Dream series, and this is between Charlie and Autumn, and this is really dark kind of beginning, very tragic beginning, because they were basically out with a friend group. Her best friend was dating, so Autumn's best friend was dating Charlie. They were like in love, talking about marriage and everything. And she had a boyfriend too. And they were all kind of out in this friend group of like 3 couples, I believe. And they end up, partying that night, and a bad, tragic accident happens. And both her boyfriend and his girlfriend die. And she basically gets blamed for it. She wasn't driving, but her boyfriend was. And it kind of comes out that he had drank, even though he said he was the DD. And she kind of knew about it, even though she does try to stop him from driving. And you learn more about their relationship. That kind of makes sense. But Charlie ends up losing everything. Like, he wanted to marry her. He was devastated. And he like really blamed her. And then the town kind of turned on her too, because her boyfriend was like from an influential family. And it was just really tough for her. So she ended up kind of just leaving town. But now she's back a few years later, because I think it's 8 years later. She is back because her brother calls her dad's sick. He has cancer and he's dying. Their business too is like really in a bad place because of her accident. That family kind of like had their business boycotted. I think it was like a bourbon, I can't remember if it was like a whiskey like thing or whatever, and then they had a bar. So she is back and she is trying to help out with her dad and then try to do whatever she can to save her family's business. And Charlie is pissed that she's there. And he basically has been kind of drinking, kind of in a bad place for the last 8 years, never moved on. And he has a really amazing business where he does like he has the horses for like horse therapy, which I freaking loved in this. And he basically kind of goes to go off on her one drunken night, and they end up kind of hate fucking, basically. They bang it out. They hate each other. It's like a hate to love. He's bullied her and been mean to her and blamed her for everything. And she feels such guilt for what happened. And so it's just this very complicated thing, but he can't stop coming back to her. And they end up kind of having this sexual thing going on, but he's also very possessive and like doesn't want her dating anybody. And then he kind of learns the truth of like what happened in her relationship, and it kind of opens his eyes to things, and he realizes how wrong he's been and fucked up. And so he feels really guilty and like wants to make amends. And so they just have this insane connection, and like, how can it work with all their history? And, it's just a lot. There's so much going on in this, but it was so hot. I mean, the sex scenes were like insane. Like, they were hot. You could feel the sexual tension. It was so angsty. It was emotional. I fucking loved it. So I gave that one 6 stars and then 3.5 chilies. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so the other 6-star that I had was Hawke by Jescie Hall. I literally, in the middle of reading this, was so in love with this book. Before I even finished it, I got on Amazon and bought it. Like, I fucking love this book. This is another angsty read. So like, my 2 6-star reads were so angsty. This one does have cheating in it, so just be aware. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I won't read it if there's cheating, but I don't always love that, but I think it's handled perfectly in this book. And, the cheating doesn't make you infuriated by the end. You'll kind of understand when you read it. But this book was so angsty. We have Hawke and Cole. Her name's Nicole, but she goes by Nick. He calls her Cole. Like, he's the only one that calls her that. But she's actually in a relationship. She's been with him since like college. She picked up her life, moved to his town where his family is kind of an influential family. And she's kind of like basically picked up her life to move with him. And he's very kind of a neglectful boyfriend. Honestly, she's never even had an orgasm with him. He's not that great. But she's basically kind of like told herself this is what she like a good relationship, in that she's kind of settled and just accepted less. And it's kind of sad to see. But all of a sudden she takes a nap one day. Her boyfriend was going to come back for like their special dinners they do every week. and she heard somebody having sex in the bedroom next door. And so she runs in there, and it's Hawke, and he is this tatted bad boy guy screwing some girl. She thinks it's an intruder. It turns out this is Hawke's house. Actually, he was in prison, and so her boyfriend is letting him stay there since they bought the house, and to do the right thing, supposedly. But you see there's some weird relationship between Hawke and her boyfriend that seems kind of fishy. But she had no idea. Her boyfriend didn't even tell her. So her and Hawke start off on a pretty bad foot. Bad first meeting. But they are alone in this house all the time. He ends up going to the bar all the time that she works with his friends. She definitely judges the book by its cover, with him being a tatted, bad boy, and she looks down on him a little bit in the beginning. But they slowly they end up spending so much time together because her boyfriend is neglectful, going on all these trips, never there, and they become really good friends. And they have this insane sexual connection, and they are trying to fight it, but they definitely want to be together. They are very sexually attracted to each other. And so there is cheating in this, but the thing that made this book to me was Hawke. He is on my top book boyfriend list. He's on the new top 10. I fucking love Hawke so much. He's so much more than what he seems, and she doesn't know why he was in prison. There's some tragic past there that she has to finally figure out. And when you find out what he's been through, it's freaking devastating. So I got emotional a couple times in this. He's so swoon worthy. He's like this cinnamon roll wrapped up in this bad boy sexy package. And I just loved Hawke. I love him. I love him. So yes, it does have cheating, and it is hard. It's so angsty because he has to watch her be with her boyfriend. They literally live together in the same house. So it's just ugh. But it was so good. So I gave this 6 stars, and then I think 3.5 chilies. But I really, really love this one, and I would definitely recommend it. Okay, so then I also had the arc for When Hearts Surrender by Victoria Loom. This is the 3rd book in the Orchid series, and I loved the 2nd book. That was a 6-star read for me. This one was a 5-star. So these are my top 5 stars here. Sorry. And this is between Maxwell Anderson and Belle. And Maxwell Anderson is the twin brother to oh gosh, I forgot his name. Is it Ryland? Anyways, it was from the previous book. It's his twin brother. He is basically the CEO of their family empire and company. And his brother was being the face of it for him for a while because Maxwell suffers from severe anxiety. He has issues speaking in public, and he has all these issues. But now his brother is stepped away from the company, is teaching and stuff. So he needs to step up and do his role. And he also has this whole thing hanging over his head because their family has this family curse that he really believes in, that whoever the firstborn son is, since he was born first as a twin, that's him. Whoever they fall in love with will die a tragic way or an accident or something. And this has happened down the line all in their family. And he had actually got married pretty young, right out of high school, and his wife died in a tragic accident. So he really believes this, and so he does not ever want to fall in love. So he basically plans on doing an arranged marriage so that he can carry on the line, and it'll just be arranged marriage. They're just gonna have sex and live in the same house. And so he's basically set up an arranged marriage, and that's on the plate, gonna be planned soon. But then one night he kind of goes, he does some street car racing sometimes. And he meets this chick, Belle, there, who's kind of doing this year of yes, just doing things she wouldn't normally do. And she comes in the race car with him, and they end up spending the night together, not spending the night, but hanging out all night, talking, really hitting it off. They share a really intense kiss. But he basically tells her to go because he cannot fall in love. Well, of course, who's going to be his future wife but Belle? So now he has this insane connection with her, but he's pushing her away. So this is pretty angsty. It has gothic vibes in his gothic type of mansion. You find out about the history of the curse, and there's deeper things involved that maybe kind of it really feels like a fated mates type of situation. I don't want to give anything away, but this was angsty. It had really fun gothic vibes. It was very hot. I felt their connection. So I really loved this one. So that one was a 5-star for me. Okay, so another 5-star that really blew me away, and it's funny, a lot of these, of course, like most of these were arcs, which is crazy, but was His Secret by Isabel Lucero, and this is a new to me author. This is an second chance workplace neighbors romance, and I freaking loved this. This is another freaking angsty one. So you can see the angst was really hitting me this month. I was loving all my angsty romances. But this is between Mateus and Adrian, and they were really good friends in college. Mateus was out as, you know, he was gay, but he wasn't like fully like out to everybody, you know, at college. He didn't flaunt it or anything. But Adrian was kind of like the jock. He was in a frat, you know, and he was like friends with Mateus, who was very quiet and studious, and Mateus just didn't get it. He kind of crushed on Adrian, but he knew that was not going to happen. But one night, like, Adrian, like, constantly wants him to come to the parties with him, always just trying to get him to hang out. And he kind of lets loose that he has kind of interest in guys. And Mateus thinks, oh, he needs help, like, figuring that out. And I'll take you to a club with me. But really, Adrian was, like, trying to hint at him that he wanted him. So, like, it was just adorable once they have a conversation and they decide to start seeing each other. But they are seeing each other in secret because Adrian comes from this family that, you know, he's meant to take over, like, the company, and his dad's not going to be okay with him being into men. And so he's been basically hiding that part of himself. And so it's, like, basically a secret relationship. And then things go down where Adrian kind of just ends things and breaks Mateus's heart. And then we jump down, I think it's 8 years later, and Mateus is one of the bosses high up in the company, and he ends up finding out that Adrian's got a job under him at his new company. And not only that, he's his neighbor now, and not only that, as he's married to a woman. So Mateus was really brokenhearted from their breakup, and like has basically never been in a relationship. He does more of like the dom sub kind of dynamics. So there's some BDSM stuff that comes into play in here that's really hot. But he's really never like opened himself up to another relationship since Adrian. And Adrian's never been with another man again. He was in love with Mateus, but he kind of was forced into this marriage. So there is cheating in this one too, but honestly, like it didn't really feel like a real marriage, and he was forced into this by his family. So you don't really like, but you do feel bad for her too. But they basically are neighbors. They're traveling together for work a couple times. They're like, once they rehash, like Adrian really grovels and tries to make amends. They just have this insane connection and they really want to be together. But it's all that complication of Adrian being in the closet and hiding who he really was. And that part was just so devastating. So there was some emotional stuff. It was so sexy. The spice was freaking next level with this. And I just love romance. So this was one of my favorite second chance that I've ever read. It's workplace, it's neighbors, it's it's amazing. So I highly recommend this book. So I do say there are some triggers for obviously the cheating and homophobia that comes into play in this, but it was fantastic. Okay, so another one that was a 5-star for me was God of Pain. I'm not going to go too deep into this because I just went over this in my weekly wrap-up, so you can see that there. But this is the second book in the Legacy of God series, Rina Kent. I fucking loved this. I think I loved it more than God of Malice, honestly. And that is because this is Creighton's romance, and Creighton is the adopted son to Aiden King, who is one of my favorite Rina Kent men from like way back in the Royal Elite series. And that was like, I think that's why I just had a tender, like big place in my heart for this. Creighton had a very tragic childhood that has lasting impacts on him. And so he has trouble with intimacy and he's very cut off. He's very quiet, doesn't really engage. He like does underground type of fighting stuff. And he basically likes to inflict pain. He's kind of a bit of a sadist, and that's kind of how he gets off. And then we have Anika, and she is the daughter of Adrian Volkov, who is a Bratva. So she's a Bratva princess. She's a ballerina. And she's been pretty obsessed with Creighton. The previous book, she was pursuing him pretty hard, but he's very not interested and kind of dismissive of her. She talks a lot. She's this bubbly, beautiful personality, and he's very quiet and reserved. But in the beginning of this, he ends up going to, because they have rival like schools, and he had end up doing something for a reason. He ends up going there to burn part of like this other structure at her brother's mansion. And her brother is going to be, in the future Bratva. He's very protective over her. So he's very like possessive of his sister. And so he ends up showing up in her room in the middle of the night, kind of hiding there for a second. And she knows it's Creighton. So she kind of confronts him later. And they kind of have a few interactions where she's put herself kind of into his path. And he's like, you would not be interested in the things like I like to inflict pain. I like, and he kind of gives her a tease of what he would be into. So now she's kind of like, oh, I don't know if I would want to go there. But now he can't stop thinking about her. And so he kind of decides to pursue it. They kind of have a secret relationship. They have a very like BDSM, but like not full BDSM. It's more like punishing, some kitty slapping, some fun stuff. It was super sexy. And obviously they're kind of keeping it secret because her brother would not be okay with it. It's not secret from everybody though. But there are some connections of her family to what happened to him as a child. So that's going to lead to some complications in the end here. But this was action packed. I loved it. I love seeing, the other characters, and I'm so excited to continue the series. But I really love this one. I didn't think I liked the whole spanking situation, but it was handled really well, and it wasn't like all about that. I just really loved their relationship, and the characters really were amazing. So I gave this one 5 stars. Okay, so then the next two I want to bring up actually came out. I was on the ARC team for this, and they were, they're connected in the same kind of world, basically. This is a post-apocalyptic, and this is, the first one was Skies of Fire by Lindsey Pogue, and these are both post-apocalyptic. It's kind of like this asteroid had hit the moon and fucked up everything on Earth, and so they've been saying that the world is going to basically fall apart. It's going to end for many years. So our characters have kind of grown up in that world. And now everything's happening at once. All these environmental bad things are going on. We have like volcanoes randomly that weren't there coming out and erupting. Bad fires, bad tornadoes. A tsunami hit San Francisco and like the coast, and it just wipes it off the map. So we have all this stuff kind of happening at the same time. So in Skies of Fire, this one is about Knox and Ava, and they are in Texas, and they kind of had known each other. They have ties to each other, some tragic stuff in their past that made her think Knox hates her because his father hates her and her family for reasons, but he never really hated her, just was kind of like distant to her. And she has a lot on her plate. She's really struggling to take care of like her grandmother type of person that took her in. And she's struggling financially. He runs a ranch with his father, and that's really, struggling too. And he's a cowboy. So this had major like cowboy vibes in it. But when everything starts to go to hell, they kind of end up together, and they're trying to find a safe place, or where can they go, because they literally have to run for their lives out of Texas with these like crazy wildfire things that start happening. And it's very intense. So this book is not as much about the romance. The romance is there, but it's just so intense. The whole world building was fantastic. This post-apocalyptic situation where it's all these weather phenomenon like happening. His brother was actually, he has a gay brother that left the ranch because his father wouldn't accept him, and he hated the ranch life. And he was in San Francisco, and so the tsunami hits, and he doesn't know if his brother made it out. And that will tie into the next book, which was Kay Webster's. But this was so good. There was so much intense stuff. You're on the edge of your seat. You don't know what's going to happen next, and they just have this amazing connection and become such a great duo together, and like really supportive of each other. And I just loved it. And then the second one that I read was the K. Webster one, which you could read these in any order that you want, but I think it was good reading Skies of Fire first. And then in Waves of Fury, that is actually his brother who is in San Francisco. So hold on. Let me find my notes real quick. Okay, sorry. I forgot their names and I had to go back to my notes. So this is between Kellen and Tyler. And Kellen is the brother of Knox. And in this, we get to see his journey because he was working at the I think he was the COO or CEO of a company. He's a very established, very high up, and he's on this huge skyscraper, so they're almost at like the top floor. And Tyler is actually coming to be like the Uber Eats, like deliver food. And he's kind of annoyed with Tyler because he got actually stuck in the elevator. So he was late with his food. And then as this is going on, a huge tsunami hits. And it is intense. So this ragtag group of like, maybe I think it was like 8 people or whatever that are left surviving because they were so high up, are stuck in this building. Everything's flooded. The whole city's flooded. And they don't know how they're going to get out of this. And even once they get out of that situation, they got to try and travel somewhere to find safety, just like the other book. And he kind of wants to go to a place that he thinks his brother will end up at. Because he finds out Texas is pretty much gone. There was massive sinkholes and fires. But the journey, this group of people that like basically are kind of forced to come together and be like a group and try to survive. They go through hell on their journey. There's limited supplies. There's dangerous people. There's traps being set up. There's a sexual assault happening and crazy murders. And so it's just freaking intense. And in this, it was really cute because Kellen wasn't really out to everybody at his work, but he was so attracted to Tyler, and it's a pretty big age gap. But Tyler was like very mature for his age. So it was like they had this really sweet connection, and they were like literally flirting and like, are we flirting right now when the world's like coming to an end? And so it was just this really sweet romance. I gotta say, there's like pretty much no spice in this. There's a little bit, so maybe 1.52 chilies, but for a K. Webster, it's like pretty much no spice. But I didn't mind it because I loved their connection and I just loved it. So I gave that one 5 stars too. So those are really great if you're looking for a good post-apocalyptic story. Then I gotta say I think that was, yeah, so those are all my top 5 stars. And then I gotta say just quickly, my biggest disappointments was Sovereign. I thought it was so long, just all smut, not really good BDSM as healing, no connection. I was super disappointed in it. It was just like, it took me forever to get through it, and it shouldn't have taken that long, but it was like every chapter was sex, and I was bored. So that one was a really big disappointment because I was expecting it to be great. And then Return to Monte Carlo was just so like the marriage in trouble, like, the husband didn't grovel enough, and the woman was literally like a doormat the entire book, and she never stood up for herself against his horrible family. I'm not going to go into those in detail, but the Return to Monte Carlo was just on my last week's wrap up if you're interested. But those are basically both 3.5 stars. So those were kind of like my big disappointments of the month. But anyways, those are my top reads and everything good from October. I'm really excited because November, we're starting out with the fanfic readathon. So I hope you guys are joining us. I'm in the middle of 2 big fics right now that I'm trying to get to. But thank you so much for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave me a like, comment. Let me know what your favorite book was or if you plan on reading any of these. I highly recommend them. And I will see you guys on the next one.